you've pivoted, I'm guessing, from entrepreneurship to now getting employed, but also now getting into investment. What calls for someone to make a pivot, or at least for you in your case, what feelings are familiar to you to make you feel that this is time for me to pivot, and what gives you that confidence to be able to make such changes as well?
I think everyone pivots. I think especially how the world is moving, things are really evolving. Your interests keep changing as you get older. Nuances. Sometimes you just get bored of what you used to do before. And I think just work around your interests, see what's cool. I always try to pivot. So I've pivoted a lot, maybe like 4 or 5 times, even just in my career. And I always wanted to learn new things, have new experiences. I feel like with the rise of technology, I feel like you can only do up to a max of 2 years of what you're doing. And then, after 2 years, you're just interested in new things. So yeah, I always tell people pivot.
Is that statistically, or is that according to your personal?
I think I've seen it around, especially our generation. Like our folks probably were in the same company for their whole career.
Yes.
A lot of people were studying, or whatever they studied is what they ended up retiring with. But for us, you find yourselves, like, as I said, I did marketing. I'm not working in marketing anymore. So it's basically more or less the same.
It's basically more or less.
And I think with unemployment, the economy, going down, so people have to kind of be adaptable, and that's why you find a lot of people are pivoting most of the times.
From this conversation that I'm having with you, I'm noticing one shade in you is that you seem to have the confidence to be able to make those decisions and just be able to say that this is not working for me. What's the next move? Which could be different in terms of people's mindsets out there. Half of the people, there's people who naturally, for them, perhaps you've mentioned you're a people person, you're able to run a crowd, and you're able to, from what I've heard, convince yourself quite easily to be able to make such changes. But I also want to get to speak on the other side of the coin, which is perhaps maybe I'm not feeling confident, or I'm scared, I'm a first-time founder, but pivoting is not as, okay, it's 2 years, let's move. Perhaps that's not how other people might process. So what do you have to say for that kind of situation?
I think you just have to try. When you're pivoting, you're very, very new. Sometimes you may have to even take a step back, probably take a pay cut or something. But I think you always have to be open to learning. So before you pivot, you have to, as I say, a lot of us have transferable skills that can be used anywhere. So for example, I'm a generalist, and I feel like that's why it's very easy for me to pivot, because my role still remains the same, doing people work. But I think the industry, maybe the role would essentially be different. So for example, as I said, I can do partnerships, I can do investment now that I've worked around understanding how companies are invested, what's the business model. So I always say, when you're trying to build yourself, always look at gaining transferable skills that can cut across any
different
industry.
I like that.
I think design is everything product. And I think people, when they think about design, they think it's just about how a product looks. But for me, design is how it works, like overall experience. So everything that comes together. So think of even like a dish, how it's the ingredients, presentation, pricing, and all of that. So I'd always say that. So design for me is a non-negotiable. Maybe next thing would be data. Of course, it's always good to have numbers, because numbers don't lie. And then lastly, I'd say people skills, because you are dealing with humans, right? If you're dealing for humans, it could be B2B, and you have to understand different nuances, and of course, even sales as well. So, and that's where the people kind of aspect comes in about.
And user feedback.
That
falls into the people category. Okay.
I think there's strength in numbers, and you find that community, the essence of a community is that you guys have a shared kind of, what's the word I can use? Interest, right?
Yes.
Or it could be a problem. So you find that people have charmers around. So if you think about investment, you have all these groups coming about. You have all these like people who are interested. For example, like the run clubs, right? People are interested in that. So when you're able to kind of see different interests, because anytime you're trying to be an entrepreneur, you're trying to solve problems that affect very many people. So it's always good to have and look at your customers as a community and how you can bring them together and solve their problems together.
I like that analogy. Dominic, you seem to be a man of a jack of all trades, which of course comes with the job. I'm curious to know how you're able to balance all the things that you're doing, from entrepreneurship to the community building, to you being working at CC Hub, to you pivoting to becoming an investor. How are you able to manage this, and what kind of mindset do you have that allows you to do this?
I'd say one, so of course, prioritizing. It's always good to understand, what to say no, what you can put effort in. I like to really do low effort, high rewards, because then you're able to do kind of many things at the same time. But also the aspect of collaboration. You can't really do everything, but every time you're able to collaborate with people, you can always give your best with what you're very good at. And I think that really helps to do, as I said, the aspect of community really plays a part. You meet people out there and you see they have great ideas, or you guys have some form of synergy, and then you want to tap into that, right? So I can say that's how I've been kind of using it. And as I said, I'm a generalist. I'm actually not a jack of all trades, but when you have kind of, I'd say like leadership is a very generalist kind of role. So that means you're able to lead people, lead teams and the likes. And I feel like that's a very good way for journalists to actually thrive.
Wow. Okay.